It began with a single headline: US and UK sanction Cambodian tycoon over $15 billion crypto fraud. But behind those words was a story darker than anyone imagined. On October 14, 2025, the US Department of Justice, DOJ, and the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, announced a sweeping crackdown on the Prince Group transnational criminal organization, led by a Chinese-born billionaire named Chen Zhi, also known as Vincent Chen Zhi. At the same moment in London, the UK Foreign Office joined in, freezing assets and coordinating a global manhunt. What they uncovered was staggering: 127,071 Bitcoin, worth nearly $15 billion, seized from Chen's empire. It was the largest cryptocurrency forfeiture in American history, but the numbers only hinted at the real horror. Beneath the glittering facade of Chen's Prince Holding Group, a network of scam compounds was operating across Cambodia, fortified buildings where thousands of trafficked workers were forced to run online fraud schemes targeting victims worldwide. For years, Chen Zhi had cultivated an image of power and philanthropy. He was photographed with Prime Minister Hun Sen, praised in local media, and hailed as a visionary entrepreneur. But to US investigators, he was the Prince of Fraud, a man who turned paradise into a prison and digital wealth into chains. How did a luxury tycoon build a $15 billion empire on human suffering and deception? And how far will justice go to bring him down? This is Crisis Classified, and tonight we expose the shadow empire of Chen Zhi. For years, Chen Zhi sold a dream, a vision of prosperity that promised to turn Cambodia into the next Singapore. As the chairman of Prince Holding Group, he stood at the center of one of Southeast Asia's fastest-growing business empires. Billboards across Phnom Penh carried his name. Glossy videos showed him shaking hands with world leaders, cutting ribbons at charity events, and donating millions to hospitals and schools. To the public, he was the image of modern success, a self-made billionaire bringing wealth, progress, and foreign investment to a once war-torn nation. But behind that immaculate smile and tailored suit was an empire built on illusion. The Prince Group, registered as a multinational conglomerate, operated across real estate, finance, casinos, and consumer services. It held legitimate subsidiaries and dazzling properties, luxury hotels in Sihanoukville, high-rises in Phnom Penh, and financial ventures across Singapore and Hong Kong. Yet investigators would later find that these were not just symbols of success. They were shields, corporate fronts designed to move money, conceal transactions, and launder the vast profits of online fraud. To those inside Cambodia's elite circles, Chen Zhi appeared untouchable. He was frequently photographed with Prime Minister Hun Sen, featured in state media as a model investor, and granted honors reserved for the country's most powerful figures. He donated to flood relief efforts, funded public parks, and sponsored education programs. The facade was perfect, a blend of philanthropy, patriotism, and power. But the timing of his generosity often coincided with major financial transfers linked to his other ventures. As the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, would later reveal, several Prince Group subsidiaries acted as financial conduits for a sprawling criminal enterprise. Funds from crypto investment scams were funneled into legitimate development projects, then converted into real estate assets or casino revenue. These properties, once praised as symbols of Cambodia's modernization, had in fact become sophisticated tools of money laundering. Inside Sihanoukville, luxury towers rose from the coastline, most of them financed by Prince Group and its affiliates. But residents noticed something strange. Many buildings stood half empty, their windows dark. Some had entire floors sealed off, guarded by private security. Whispers began to spread. These weren't hotels or offices. They were compounds. In 2023 and 2024, regional journalists investigating human trafficking along Cambodia's coast began tracing victims' stories back to these same towers. Workers recruited from Vietnam, Thailand, and China thought they were accepting tech jobs. Instead, they were trapped inside what survivors would later describe as digital prisons, forced to work 16-hour shifts running online scams. Each day, they used fake profiles to seduce victims abroad into investing in crypto schemes. Their profits fed into bank accounts and crypto wallets tied to Prince Group shell entities. To the outside world, Chen was still a visionary businessman. His personal foundation launched clean water initiatives, green energy projects, and arts sponsorships. But to law enforcement in Washington, London, and New York, a different picture was emerging. Beneath the surface of philanthropy lay a labyrinth of offshore accounts, shell corporations, and hidden crypto wallets, all tracing back to one man. The illusion of legitimacy had worked for nearly a decade. Chen Zhi had convinced governments, investors, and entire communities that he was building Cambodia's future. In truth, he was constructing a financial machine powered by deception and human misery. And while his skyscrapers glittered under the tropical sun, deep inside their mirrored walls, something monstrous was growing, a new kind of empire built not on labor or innovation, but on lies. The illusion of success ended the moment investigators looked inside the walls of Chen Zhi's empire. What they found wasn't a corporation, it was a machine built on fear, lies, and human slavery. Across Sihanoukville, Kampong Speu, and Tre Tom, massive compounds rose behind high concrete walls topped with razor wire. They looked like new technology parks or private residential zones, sleek glass windows, neon signage, security guards at every gate. But to those who entered, the truth became clear within minutes. These weren't business centers, they were prisons. Inside, thousands of workers, men and women from Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and China, were confined under armed guard. Many had been lured with online job offers promising tech or customer service positions. Recruiters told them they'd be working for crypto trading platforms or AI marketing firms. But when they arrived, their passports were seized, their phones confiscated, and their contracts replaced with threats. Some were beaten, others were shocked with electric batons if they disobeyed. They worked in large open halls lined with hundreds of computers, what investigators later called phone farms. The workers were ordered to create fake identities, pose as investors or lovers, and target victims abroad. It was pig butchering at scale, scams where trust was cultivated over weeks or months before the final slaughter. Victims were tricked into transferring thousands, sometimes their entire life savings, into fake investment apps linked to the Prince Group network. Every interaction was scripted. Supervisors circulated chat templates, love confession phrases, and financial advice messages, all designed to manipulate human emotion. The compound's leaders measured performance in kills, the number of victims each worker could deceive into sending money. At the end of each week, those who didn't meet quota were punished, locked in dark rooms, denied food, or sold to other compounds. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, Chen's network operated at least 10 scam compounds under the control of the Prince Group Transnational Criminal Organization, TCO. The most notorious among them, Jin Bay Compound, hidden behind the glittering Jin Bay Hotel and Casino in Sihanoukville, Golden Fortune Science and Technology Park near the Vietnamese border, and Mango Park, a secluded site west of Phnom Penh. Each compound was run by separate managers but funded and supplied through Prince Group subsidiaries. The money flowed upward. as workers extracted crypto or wire transfers from victims across the United States, Europe, and Asia. The proceeds were laundered through a complex chain of wallets, exchanges, and shell companies, all connected to Chen Zhi's holding structure. Investigators later found that the same blockchain addresses receiving scam funds were also used to finance construction projects under Prince Group's real estate arm. Victims on both sides suffered. Those outside the compounds lost their savings, convinced they were investing in legitimate crypto ventures. Those inside lost their freedom, trapped behind locked doors and tinted windows, forced to scam others to survive. The system was a perfect loop, one person's despair fueling another's enslavement. A survivor from Thailand, later rescued by a joint operation between Interpol and Cambodian police, described the conditions. "We slept in rooms with no windows. We were forced to talk to strangers all day, pretend to love them, make them trust us. If we refused, they sold us to another building. Some people tried to run. They disappeared." When the US Treasury imposed sanctions on Chen Zhi in October 2025, they called these compounds a hybrid of organized fraud and human trafficking. Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, officials compared them to digital sweatshops, saying the workers were modern slaves for the crypto age. By the time law enforcement finally obtained satellite images and survivor testimonies, thousands had already vanished. Some were deported, others relocated under new aliases. Yet the compounds continued operating under new names, new companies, new ownership. Because in Chen Zhi's empire, nothing ever disappeared. It was simply rebranded. If the scam compounds were Chen Zhi's factories of deception, then his money laundering network was the engine that kept the empire alive. The billions siphoned from victims across the world didn't just sit in wallets. They moved, multiplied, and vanished through a labyrinth of accounts designed to erase their origin. At the heart of this machine was Prince Holding Group, a conglomerate so vast and intertwined that legitimate business and organized crime became indistinguishable. Through its subsidiaries in real estate, banking, and casino operations, the company created an ideal cover for illegal funds. The Jinbei Hotel and Casino, a glittering landmark in Sihanoukville, served not only as a luxury resort, but as a money pipeline. High roller suites doubled as counting rooms. Gambling transactions were used to wash crypto into clean cash. Every day, millions in digital currency flowed through accounts disguised as hotel revenue or foreign investment returns. According to the US Department of Justice, DOJ, Chen's organization used a sophisticated scheme known as spraying and funneling. The method was simple but devastatingly effective. Large sums of stolen crypto were broken into thousands of smaller transactions. The spray, each sent through unrelated wallets to obscure the trail. Those fragments were then funneled back into central holding accounts under corporate names like Biex Exchange, Jinbei Group, and Huione Group, before being converted into US dollars or real estate investments. In one of the most extraordinary enforcement actions in financial history, the DOJ and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, seized 127,271 Bitcoin, equivalent to nearly $15 billion, from wallets linked to Chen's network. Prosecutors called it the largest cryptocurrency forfeiture in American history, a digital vault of stolen hope, each coin tied to a victim who thought they were investing in a better future. But Chen's brilliance wasn't in stealing the money, it was in making it look legitimate. He moved funds through a web of shell companies registered in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai, jurisdictions with limited disclosure laws. Each company appeared to be an importer, developer, or lender. When money arrived from the scam compounds, accountants labeled it as project financing or construction revenue. Then it was reinvested in high-rise projects, casino expansions, or tokenized real estate platforms, turning criminal proceeds into gleaming proof of success. Investigators discovered that crypto wallets connected to Chen's group frequently interacted with OTC brokers and mining farms across Southeast Asia. These brokers helped convert crypto into local currency using fake invoices or trade-based laundering schemes. A shipment of construction materials worth $10 million might never exist, yet the payment would clear, legitimizing dirty money through falsified documentation. Behind this complexity lay one simple truth. Chen Zhi had turned trust into a commodity. Investors, politicians, and even banks believed in his vision because the numbers looked perfect. For every suspicious transaction, there were 10 legitimate ones. For every ghost company, there was a real office. For every criminal report, there was a charitable donation. Financial analysts at Chainalysis later described the Prince Group's structure as a hybrid ecosystem, half corporate, half criminal. In their data, the group's wallets had interacted with more than 30 different exchanges and 2,000 intermediary addresses, many tied to darknet operations or gambling platforms. Yet, the money always resurfaced in the same place, Cambodia. Meanwhile, Chen flaunted his wealth openly. He acquired private jets, penthouses, and luxury cars, each registered under one of his companies. His personal office featured a wall-sized digital display showing the real-time movement of crypto markets. To visitors, it was a symbol of innovation. To investigators, it was a command center for global fraud. By late 2025, as US prosecutors pieced together the blockchain trail, one pattern became undeniable. The flow of funds from American victims to Cambodian compounds, then into Chen's corporate empire. Every stolen dollar had a destination, and every destination led back to Prince Group. In Cambodia, power doesn't just protect wealth, it defines it. And Chen Zhi understood that better than anyone. To keep his empire untouchable, he built not only financial networks, but political ones. From the beginning, Prince Group operated less like a corporation and more like a state within a state, a parallel system of influence, money, and loyalty that reached into every corner of Cambodia's economy. Chen cultivated his image as a friend of the government. He appeared at official ceremonies beside Prime Minister Hun Sen, his photographs published in national newspapers and broadcast on state television. When floods devastated Cambodia in 2021, Prince Group pledged millions in relief aid. When the government sought foreign investors, Chen stepped forward with donations and sponsorships. To the public, he was a philanthropist, to officials, a benefactor, and to himself, a man buying invisibility. The relationship was mutually beneficial. Prince Group's massive investments in real estate and infrastructure helped reshape Phnom Penh and Sihanoukville, giving the government economic bragging rights. In return, Chen received what he valued most: silence. According to Western investigators, Prince Group subsidiaries regularly paid facilitation fees, a euphemism for bribes, to ensure smooth operations and protection from raids. Former employees, speaking under condition of anonymity, described envelopes of cash sent to regional police and local administrators to ignore the presence of scam compounds. One recalled seeing a monthly stability budget labeled as corporate security expenses that went directly to law enforcement. In official documents, the money trail led to political foundations and charitable fronts, many tied to prominent Cambodian figures. One of Chen's shell entities donated heavily to youth development programs sponsored by government ministries, programs that conveniently exempted Prince Group's properties from labor inspections. When the US Department of Justice, DOJ, and US Treasury, OFAC, announced sanctions on October 14, 2025, they explicitly cited systemic corruption and state protection as key enablers of Chen's network. The same day, The Financial Times and Reuters published a photo that ignited global outrage. Chen Zhi shaking hands with Prime Minister Hun Sen, smiling calmly as if nothing had happened. The image was taken in Phnom Penh by Reuters photographer Pring Samrang during a private meeting that occurred just hours after sanctions were announced. International reaction was swift. The UK Foreign Office froze Prince Group's assets in London, including luxury properties valued at over £95 million, while Interpol issued a red notice for Chen Zhi. But inside Cambodia, officials dismissed the allegations as foreign interference. State media portrayed Chen as a victim of Western misunderstanding, a businessman unfairly targeted for his success. Behind the scenes, however, unease was growing. Diplomats reported quiet meetings between Cambodian ministries and Chinese envoys discussing the political fallout of Chen's exposure. For years, China's Belt and Road Initiative had poured billions into Cambodia, making Chinese investors indispensable. But now, Chen's criminal empire threatened to drag those partnerships into scandal. Investigators found that Chen's protection extended beyond borders. Several of his associates held dual citizenship and controlled offshore companies in Hong Kong, Macau, and Singapore, giving them diplomatic leverage and banking privileges. Through these connections, Chen laundered influence as effectively as money. When asked about the allegations, one Cambodian official gave a chillingly candid answer to AP News. "Every government has businessmen. He's just one who knows how to use the system." That system, a web of corruption, complicity, and fear, allowed Chen Zhi to operate untouched for nearly a decade. It wasn't just that officials looked away, it was that they needed him, his money, his projects, his promise of progress. But when the West finally struck back, freezing billions and naming him a criminal, the world saw what had been hiding in plain sight: a man who turned politics into armor, charity into camouflage, and a nation's ambition into his personal shield. And as the walls began to close around him, one question lingered over Phnom Penh's golden skyline: would Cambodia protect Chen Zhi or finally face the truth he built his fortune on? The morning of October 4th, 2025, marked the day Chen Zhi's empire began to crumble. In Washington, D.C., officials from the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, and the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, stood side by side as cameras clicked and headlines exploded. Their message was clear: the world's most powerful governments were coming for the Prince Group Transnational Criminal Organization, TCO. Across the Atlantic, the UK Foreign Office issued its own statement, declaring sanctions on 146 individuals and entities linked to Prince Group. Bank accounts were frozen, property titles suspended, and all access to the British financial system cut off. What had once been a glittering multinational conglomerate now found itself branded a criminal empire. The U.S. indictment, filed in the Eastern District of New York, charged Chen Zhi with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to launder money, and human trafficking-related offenses. The complaint also detailed an unprecedented forfeiture action, the seizure of 127,271 Bitcoin, valued at nearly $15 billion, which prosecutors described as the bloodline of the world's largest digital fraud network. Within hours, the announcement sent shockwaves across the global markets. Cryptocurrency exchanges scrambled to identify accounts connected to the Prince Group, while financial regulators from Singapore, Hong Kong, and Dubai began internal audits to trace any remaining funds. The Elliptic and Chainalysis blockchain analytics firms confirmed that wallets tied to Chen's organization had interacted with more than 2,000 exchange addresses worldwide, some linked to darknet money laundering rings. As the news spread, Chen's whereabouts became a mystery. Intelligence reports indicated he had not left Cambodia, but his private jet, registered under a Prince Group subsidiary, had vanished from tracking radars days before the announcement. Rumors circulated that he was hiding inside one of his luxury compounds near Phnom Penh, surrounded by loyal security forces and encrypted communications gear. Others claimed he had fled to Macau, seeking refuge under the protection of political allies. In London, authorities moved swiftly to freeze Prince Group's holdings, including a £95 million office tower and several high-end properties in the financial district. In New York, federal agents executed search warrants against shell companies suspected of facilitating Prince Group's dollar transfers. Interpol officially issued a red notice for Chen Zhi, labeling him an international fugitive. Meanwhile, the reaction in Phnom Penh was tense. The Cambodian government publicly called for a fair and transparent process, insisting on Chen's innocence until proven guilty. But behind closed doors, panic spread through the country's elite. Prince Group had invested heavily in national projects, from luxury resorts to infrastructure, and its sudden isolation threatened to cripple the economy. Media outlets across Asia published stark contrasts. Images of FBI agents in press conferences juxtaposed with photos of Chen Zhi smiling alongside Prime Minister Hun Sen. For the first time, the narrative of Cambodia's golden investor was replaced by one of corruption, exploitation, and deceit. By late October, investigators confirmed that the seized Bitcoin wallets were under direct U.S. control, stored in federal custody through the U.S. Marshal Service's Digital Asset Division. It was a symbolic victory. America now held the fortune that had enslaved thousands. But as one senior DOJ official warned, taking the money is the easy part. Taking down the network will take years. Because even after the sanctions, even after the seizures and the headlines, parts of Chen Zhi's empire still moved in the shadows, repackaged, renamed, and ready to begin again. The crackdown had begun, but the war was far from over. When the dust settled, the world was left staring at the ruins of a $15 billion illusion. Chen Zhi, the man once celebrated as a symbol of Cambodia's new wealth, was now branded a fugitive, accused of running one of the largest cyber fraud empires in modern history. The skyscrapers he built to display power had become monuments to greed. The victims he created stretched from Texas to Bangkok, from London to Beijing, millions of lives connected by a digital web of deception. But this story isn't only about one man. It's about the new face of global crime, one that hides behind corporations, investments, and polished press releases. In Chen's world, every act of generosity meant exploitation. Every tower he built was paid for with the suffering of someone he'd never meet. Governments can freeze accounts and seize Bitcoin, but they cannot easily dismantle the system that allowed it to thrive, a system fueled by corruption, technology, and silence. For every Chen Zhi exposed, another waits in the shadows, ready to rebuild, smarter and richer than before. The fall of the Prince Group is more than a legal case. It's a warning that the line between progress and predation is thinner than ever, and that behind the promise of wealth can lie an empire of victims. You've been watching Crisis Classified. Until the next case, stay aware.